First item, actionable item on tonight's agenda are bills and communications is the approval of the September 23rd, 2020 meeting minutes. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as submitted.
Thank you, Joe. Christian, I think just mouthed that he would second that. Is that correct, Christian? Yes, that's a second from Christian. In favor? Aye.
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 Joe, Jerry, Christian, Mark. Can we lose Quinn? Okay, in favor. Okay. Next item in front of us under the new business section is a presentation by Chris DeAngelis from Cabezas and DeAngelis Engineers representing the Carriage Drive neighborhood for possible sewer extension. Let me, Chris, before you discuss, I'm not sure there's an actual document, is there, in terms of a presentation?
Yeah, there is. If I can, I can lead you through it. Yes, there is 2 plan sheets.
Okay. Okay. Let me just set it up for you. We have not had a situation in maybe we've had one over the last 6 or 7 years relative to connecting existing homes into the sewer system. There is a provision and some economic terms around doing that that we will get to. But this is, if it seems a little foreign to some of the members on the commission, it's rare. And Chris is going to walk us through, presumably, the reason why this neighborhood would like to connect into the sewer system, which is in the Southport section of town. Chris, it's all yours.
Okay. I'll see if I can share my screen. And hopefully you can all see first page here. Okay, can everyone see my my screen? It's a map showing Carriage Drive with Southport Terrace to the right-hand side and Mill Hill Terrace to the left-hand side.
I'm looking at you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, Chris,
Yeah.
Chris, it's not coming across, Chris.
Yeah, it was sent out. So if everybody wants to open the document, it's the Carriage Drive folder.
I see that it's
Primary plan.
but it's not connecting yet. Plugged in here.
2020.
It's just really slow.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
Before we start, hang on one second, Chris. Just one note before we start. If everybody can just identify themselves before we speak, just so that we can have the recording for the minutes. It just makes it a little easier. So, go ahead, Chris.
Okay, so yeah, I can see the connection's not going through on my end, but basically what we have, so Carriage Drive, if you're familiar with it, it's a roadway probably 900 to 1,000 feet long. And recently, Southport Terrace is a new subdivision that was connected off of it about 800 feet from the intersection with Mill Hill Terrace. So Tim Warren is one of the residents of Carriage Drive. He recently moved there, young family. And one of the issues with the house purchase was that it's still on a septic tank and leaching field, as are all the houses on Carriage Drive. I understand all the other subdivisions in this neighborhood have all been sewered. So hopefully you're looking at the plans that I put together, but the existing line in Mill Hill Terrace ends right at the intersection with Carriage Drive. And the two houses that are on the intersection of Mill Hill Terrace and Carriage Drive, one on the south intersection, one on the north, are both hooked up to that sewer. But all the houses on Carriage Drive are still on septic and sanitary, and there are a total of, just add them up here, looks like 1, 2, 3, 6 houses. 6 houses that are currently in septic. So Mr. Warren, who resides at 63 Carriage Drive, retained me last year to do a quick little study just to see if it was possible to hook up. You know, could we connect via gravity to the existing sewer line in Mill Hill Terrace? And so we took a look at that, and we found that we could. You know, the slope of Carriage Drive is such that we can get the 8 houses on Carriage Drive to connect and flow into the sewer line in Mill Hill Terrace.
Wait, Chris, let me enter. How did you
Sure.
just go from 6 to, how did you go from 6 to 8?
Number of houses on Carriage Drive
6.
is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 houses. There's 6 houses on Carriage Drive.
Okay.
It's 6 houses. My mistake. Okay. So again, that would be about 800 linear feet of sanitary sewer. The sewer would be pitched at 1%. That's probably a little conservative. We can probably go a little bit less than that, maybe as low as 0.5%, depending on your standards. But it does work at 1%. Mr. Warren has talked to all of his neighbors. Most of them are in favor of it, depending on the cost. Of course, they understand that, you know, there's certain things they would have to pay for, such as connecting their own lateral. There's one neighbor who's at the very beginning of Carriage Drive who recently upgraded his septic system and leaching field. And since he spent a lot of money on a new system, he's not interested. But the other 5 neighbors are all interested in connecting if it can be done. The second option, we looked at potentially connecting to the existing sewer line in Southport Terrace.
Yeah.
So when the new street was installed, Southport Terrace, sewer line was installed, but it stopped short of Carriage Drive, about 175 feet short of Carriage Drive, excuse me. So as a second option, we could run sanitary sewers in Carriage Drive to the intersection of Southport. So it would be like a T intersection. We would have one sewer line coming from the end of the street and heading, let's see, this would be easterly, and then the other one heading westerly and meeting right at the intersection of Southport Terrace, and then running down Southport Terrace to the existing sewer manhole that was installed. So that saves a couple of 100 feet of sanitary sewer. Instead of having 800 square feet, we would have only about 600 feet. Excuse me, I got my throat getting dry.
Yeah.
The downside is that we would not have the ability to connect to the house. Hold on one second while I get a drink. So with the second option, we would not have the ability to connect to the first house on Carriage Drive. But again, that is the house where the owner said he's not interested in connecting because he already upgraded the sanitary sewer line. Mm-hmm. So what we're here to ask you tonight is, would the town of Fairfield be willing to construct a line in Carriage Drive to serve the 6 existing houses, or at the very least extend the line from Southport Terrace, which would serve 5 of the 6 houses?
Gotcha. Let me ask a few questions of the department. I seem to recall a few years ago there when the clean water people were in to talk that there were certain areas of town that they were most interested in getting off the septic and onto the sewer. Was this particular street one of them?
No, not at the time.
No, because it's a little bit elevated, right?
Yeah, because of the location. Yeah. So that was the Southport area. So everything
Okay.
down in Southport, Wpca Ave, and so forth.
Yep. Okay.
This is Brian Carey too, and I apologize for the video not working. But this is in the, so basically, and if Dennis is on the phone, Dennis Divert, he can talk to this too. This is part of the service area though, that was put together as part of our master plan to look at areas that would be serviced in the future.
Okay.
It's kind
So
of on the cusp of that.
Yeah, that's what I'm pulling up. And then in terms of cost, 600 versus 800 feet, what's the approximate cost of doing that? Ballpark.
The rough ballpark is about $150 to $200 a lineal foot. So that's not including utilities or anything like that, you know, or rock. Obviously, the cost would be escalated if you encounter something more.
So 800 at 150, somewhere around 120,000.
200 times 800 is 160,000. So I'd go with the high number just for reference. This is Joe.
Yeah, you know, I think if in hindsight we would have, if we had known a bit, if we knew now if we knew then what we knew now, we probably would have had Southport Terrace run that line all the way to Carriage.
You guys see my screen now? It looks like it went through finally.
Yeah, it's up.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Okay.
What
So
you're looking
then-
at is extension here in Southport Terrace up to Carriage Drive. It's about 175 feet.
Okay.
And we did look at
So,
files. I did go out there and do some survey, shoot the manhole frames and the existing inverts.
so then in terms of revenue offsets, we have 5 homes that would pay the connection fee or the I&I fee of $4,250. We have a parallel assessment fee. Does the department have, and that's based on the assessed value of the land. That's a complicated algorithm, isn't it? Assessed value of the land
So
times linear
it's
feet
the
times.
assessed value, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. It's the assessed value
not at all.
Times $30 a foot for the frontage, and then that number, you multiply that number, and then it's 20% of that. So me and
Okay,
Chris
what is
did
that?
take off on a couple of the
Yeah.
houses, and it's
Yeah.
roughly around $10,000 a house.
Well, that's including the I&I fee as well.
Correct.
Okay, so round numbers, 6,000, 4,000. And then there would be the incremental annual billing, which plus or minus $500 per house.
Yeah.
You know, so, and then I guess, as we think about plant upgrades and other improvements, they participate in those incremental expenses along with the 17,000 or so others. Is there any capacity issue constraint?
No, my only suggestion would be I would weigh towards option 2 rather than option 1, in sending it down Mill Hill Road, or Mill Hill Terrace, sorry, to the fact that there's potentially a larger development coming in down the street on Mill Hill Terrace. The diocese is selling one of the pieces off, and there's been a lot of interest on that. So we don't know what's coming in, but we just don't want to overtax the line on that system. This option 2 goes right down to the Mill River pump station and gets pumped across. And there shouldn't be, because it's a new line, there shouldn't be any capacity issue on that.
Chris,
Jerry,
this
I have
is
I have a
Joe.
question.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
Let's,
Okay, so is there a liability to the town if you go with option 2 and cover the 5 houses, and then that 6th house in 10 years wants to be a part of this? We seem to be planning them out of the equation if we go the other way.
They still do have the option or the opportunity to extend to Mill Hill Terrace, but they would have to, dig in the road. And most likely in this case, it would have to be a pump system anyway. So because of the grade over there, I don't think they would be able to make it by gravity, regardless, either way.
You're talking about just that one house.
That one house, correct.
So if we go with the plan option 1, where we run it towards Mill Plain, with Southport Terrace,
Mill Hill Terrace.
you cover the 6 houses and it's a gravity, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
I don't know, and Chris DeAngelis, you might be able to weigh in on this. I don't know if you've done any research as far as elevations or not, but, I don't know if these houses will all be able to make it by gravity without a pump system. So.
Yes, they can. If you're looking at my screen again, I have the second option up on the screen, and see that this house here. This is number 29 Carriage Drive. The sanitary sewer line here begins at number 63. That's Mr. Warren's house, and then this is northerly to the intersection with Southport, and then 175 feet down to the existing manhole that was installed. But this house here could connect over to this manhole here in Mill Hill. They would just have to extend the sewer. This is probably about a little under 100 feet, maybe 70 or 80 feet to reach their property line right here. And they could get a lateral here and then flow the sewer over to this manhole. But what I'm showing here in option 2, this line here is already at the minimum 0.5% slope going towards. So, I can't extend this further to the south because then you'll see we're just, you can see the cover. You can see the street is dropping off as it goes towards Mill Hill. So as our sewer line comes up, we'll be too shallow. So that's why this option 2 is only limited to the 5 houses and not to the 6th house.
Jerry.
Yeah, the question I had is there sewers on Meadow Ridge Road now, which connects to Southport Terrace?
Yes.
There already is, okay.
Yep.
Okay. I think this is going to be these situations are going to come at us with a degree of frequency going forward as septic systems begin to fail, and new owners are moving in, and testing systems. So this is probably the first of a number of applications in front of us. It's complex. There's a lot of numbers to digest. To summarize, it sounds like the project would be in the neighborhood of, at 600 feet, $120,000 to $150,000 that presumably the applicant is asking the town to put out, or the department to put out. And in exchange for that, the homeowners would pay the connection fee, the frontage fee, what I'll call it, and an annual fee to the Wpca. In addition, they would have their own lateral connection expense to incur. So that's at least $10,000 to the department plus their own lateral connection fees. So Chris, is one of the homeowners with us tonight?
Yes, Tim Warren, who resides at 20. Let's see, 63 Carriage.
So I would ask you, before we start giving this due consideration, is it worthwhile given those economics?
Well, hello, everybody. Thanks for taking some time with us tonight. My name is Tim, and we live at 63 Carriage Drive now, and if I'm understanding you correctly, it's about $10,000 to connect, and then there's an additional fee per house that I just want to understand a little closer. What would the additional fees be above and beyond
it's what your annual usage is. So it's effectively how much water you use, which is annualized. So how much wastewater we're processing.
Got it.
So
Well,
on average.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah. So that may be in the range of plus or minus $500, depending on how much water is used.
Well, I live in Fairfield now. We just sold our house because we were doing work on the house in Carriage Drive, and so I'm familiar with that expense. Yeah. And I have to say, I mean, as soon as we moved in, we met all the neighbors. We knew some of them before, a family connection, and I think there's a lot of young families on the street, and a lot of systems that, like Chris said, are aging. And even Eli, who lives in I think it's 59, the southerlymost house we're talking about possibly excluding, he just put a brand new system in, and even just for the option to connect later for when he maybe sells his house, even he wasn't like a hard no. I think I think you got a lot of people on the street that are really interested, and the timing is going to be right for at least 3 of the families. Maybe 4, who one family's looking to sell in the next 2 or 3 years. And anyway, it just, we felt like we had enough of a majority to get to this point, and based on the numbers you're saying to me, I think there would be some excitement around it. I think relative to the cost of replacing a leaching system and a tank and all that, it's manageable. Of course, I'm speaking on behalf of other people and their finances and their families, but we've had enough conversations where I'm relatively confident that these numbers would be encouraging, I think, if I understand them correctly.
Well, I think we're still trying to get them all in front of us and process them, and there's still a number of members on the commission who have not weighed in. I'm curious what their thoughts are.
So this is Quinn. If you can hear me, I would love to delve into the numbers a little bit more and see how many years it would take for us, our return on our investment. So the investment seems to be around $100,000 to $110,000, and how are we going to make? How long is it going to take us to make that up in the $500 per year per house, plus whatever else we end up doing with the plant. So it'd be nice to see those numbers.
Yeah.
It's about $100. It's over $100,000.
Yeah, as we know, it's expensive to lay pipe.
$150,000, right?
Mark, I can do that calculation real quickly. If you're going to get 5 houses at 500, that's 2,500 a year, and you're covering 100,000, the expense net of the initial cost. That'd be about 40 years.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're looking at an investment type decision.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'd like to ask another question. This is still Joe.
Of course. Yeah.
And my question is to Chris, Chris Rogers, staff. Do we ever do a project where we sort of leave out one resident? I mean, I am not against putting a pipe in for 5, but I'm worried about that 6th person.
No, and it's a valid point. I see the point on it. Obviously they're giving us both options to go with, but no, normally we would incur all the residents or at least give the option for everybody to connect into. So,
Right.
So let me just back up to option 2 again. So if we were to go with that option, right now they leave that manhole short of the property. We usually request or require them to extend that manhole to the furthest property line of that residence so that the next resident does have the option to extend, which in this case would extend, and I don't know, I don't have the measurement in front of me, but it looks like it's probably another, 150 feet they would have to go to extend that manhole. I don't think we're going to be able to make the slope or the pitch on that pipe if we extend it any further than what it is. So option 1 would probably be a better scenario in this regard. So.
Okay, and option 1, except for maybe some capacity with that new development you're talking about, would be about, instead of about 120,000, about 160,000. Sounds like using 200 as your number. Rough number.
Right, and capacity issue and this is going to weigh into the same scenario that we just ran into with the past project downtown. But the new project coming in would have to do flow testing and whatnot, flow monitoring on the line to make sure there's adequate capacity. So, at that point we would determine if there's adequate capacity. So.
Okay. And just indulge me one more question. When we do a project like this, do we get initial sign off from all the residents? I see Tim's giving us his discussion with his neighbors, but do we get a commitment at that point before we do any work that they will connect within a period of time? That's to Chris Rogers, typically, or Brian.
We would probably have to get some kind of a commitment. I don't know if it would be, like a 5-year commitment, something like that. Give them some kind of moratorium that they would have, a time limit to connect into. If their septic system fails based on the town code, that they are required to connect into the sewer if available.
Okay, thank you.
So Joe and the commission, this is Brian. The other thing we need to look at is to do assessment where we could actually just roll all the costs into a 20-year assessment on the property. I know some WPCAs do that for extending the sewer line. We'd have to talk. We'd have to get the answers on that, where we'd actually assess the property for all the property owners for the entire cost of the project over a 20-year period or 10-year period, whatever's agreed upon, and then that assessment's paid annually. And then on top of that, they'd also be paying their sewer use fee.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, that's helpful. I think that we're trying to kind of put together the pieces of a puzzle here, and we still need a few more pieces. And I think we need a degree of creative intellect to bring this together. So I'm going to suggest that Tim and Chris work with the department around some creative ideas. I think you've gotten some real-time feedback from the commission with the information that we have in front of us, and let's go from there. But I do think that there needs to be a commitment from at least 5 of the residents to go forward. Otherwise, I think there's a situation that's going to be uncomfortable for all of us.
Okay.
weigh in for a second? One of the suggestions that was discussed is actually getting a hard figure, putting some numbers together as far as, what the cost would be. Then we can take that number and break it down per resident and kind of get a feel for what the project is going to cost. So,
Yeah. Do we have the capacity to do that ourselves?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, let's do it. Okay, Tim and Chris, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Good luck with the rest of the meeting, guys. Thanks.
You're welcome to stay.
Thanks. I got 3 kids screaming at me, so I'm going to go.
Okay.
Have a good one,
Okay.
guys.
Thanks. Have a good night. Next item is the discussion of the draft agreement between the town of Fairfield and Wright Pierce for the Wpca facility upgrade for engineering services. I'm guessing we have Dennis with us tonight. Is that correct?
I'm here. Yes, I'm here.
Yeah.
How you doing?
Okay. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. So Bill and Brian and Chris and Dennis, how do you want to proceed with this?
So I'll just open this up. Obviously, this has been kicking around since the facility plan was completed back in 2018. Basically, at that time, after the plan was completed, Wright Pierce put together basically a draft agreement to go into the design phase of the facility upgrade. So that document has been, I don't know if it was ever presented to the commission, but it was presented to the town back in 2018. So there's been some, with all of the work that's been going down at the plant with the hardening project and the generators, there's been a lot of questions from the administration about the facility upgrade project as a whole. Just because they keep looking at this large number on all of these capital charts that's out there in the realm of $65, $70 million. So they want to start exploring that. Dennis and I and Bill talked, and this draft agreement came back up again. We actually had a internal meeting briefly with the Tom Bremer, who was the CAO, and Dennis kind of laid out the process about submitting this to the state for their review and kind of agreement. And the administration just asked that we put this before you tonight to just kind of start the process and start the discussion about the draft agreement, what's required, the process about starting the design for facility upgrade and bringing that agreement to the state for their review and approval. So I'll let Dennis fill in the details on that front. But one of the things that we did get out of the way was that whether or not this project was going to require the commission to go out for another competitive bidding process in the eyes of the state through the QDS process. They said we're not so far removed from the facility plan, feasibility upgrade plan, that we would need to go through another competitive process. So that being said, if the town wanted to engage with Wright Pierce, we can, and we do not need to go out to bid again for design services, which I think is, I'm not going to tell the commission what they need to do, but seeing that Wright Pierce developed the initial plan, there would be kind of a coming up to speed if we were to go out to bid with another consultant to kind of get them on board. So I think we'd be taking a step backwards a little bit, but I will let that set with that decisions rest with the commission.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. I'll just add just a couple of things to answer maybe some questions that I think Joe's going to have. So this vote, making a motion to send this to the state for their approval does not tie you to anything. It does not mean that you are locked into doing the project. It's just a step that needs to be taken. If the town of Fairfield wants to receive Clean Water Fund monies for this with the grant program, then no work can be conducted until the state approves the scope and fee. So that's really the purpose of this. Is to get the state to buy in on the draft scope and fee. And then once they buy in on the draft scope and fee, if the town of Fairfield chooses to move forward with Wright Pierce, then we would dive into the details of the numbers and the scope items and things like that. So it's just it's a required step if you were to apply for state funding for the project. Bill, did I miss anything?
No, it's
Bill Martin?
basically a stepping stone for us to go ahead and get approval by the state to enter into a contract with them to start the design of the treatment plant.
I'll confess, I thought we were already here. I thought we already made this decision. It sounds like we're just renewing our decision or reaffirming our decision.
So I think the two decisions that need to be made is, at this point, is just, let me backtrack. The decision that needs to be made to say, hey, we're going to send this agreement to the state with an idea that we probably will be retaining Wright Pierce. We can get the comments back from the state. The idea about how we're funding this project, even the design phase of that, is not something we need to discuss right now. There's a whole myriad. There's a whole myriad of issues about when we take funding from the state and not, and how we're going to deal with that. And that's going to take a team of financial people and probably a subcommittee of this commission to sit down and figure that the best course of action for that.
I agree. So this seems, any comments or questions?
This is Christian. This just seems more of like a procedural formality than anything else at this point, right?
Correct.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Joe?
Dennis, can I ask you a question? At least what I remember from the original overview, there was no discussion or no issue about doing anything near the plant as far as soil goes.
Yeah, no, that's it.
That seems to be the big four-letter word with our hardening project, et cetera.
Yeah.
When I read through your document, it doesn't address anything as far as soil. Is that a problem?
It's in there.
Is that something we're trying to avoid doing?
No, it's
with
in
the
there.
state?
It's in there.
Environmental.
It's in there, Joe.
It is in there.
It's under the environmental line item.
I missed it. Sorry.
No, it's all right. There's a
On
lot of
page
pages.
4 of the agreement, it says hazardous material consultant.
Yeah,
we would have to sub that out to someone who deals with that stuff.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I'm all in favor of not digging.
Yeah, me too. So just so you know, unfortunately on that matter, and we could talk about this on project updates, but time is really not on our side to do environmental investigation in some of the areas at the site. So that being said, the sooner we get this agreement to the state and determine that we want to move forward with Wright Pierce, the quicker we would get them in kind of working in conjunction with the existing environmental consultant who's been overseeing the hardening project, and who else ever would be to see the additional environmental investigation throughout the entire site. And I can kind of explain that when we go over the hardening project a little later.
Okay. All right. So what does the motion here sound like? Help me out.
I think it's as easy as make a motion to send the draft agreement dated X, Y, and Z from Wright Pierce to the DEP for their formal review and acceptance.
It would be the correct title, scope of services.
You want to take a stab at that?
Mark, who was that directed to?
Anyone? Anyone?
All right. Joe, I'll take the shot.
Why don't you repeat? Yeah, I was going to say, repeat what you just said, and then one of us can write it down and make a motion.
Well, I think I've got it. I mean, it's just a question of make a motion to send the Wright Pierce draft agreement between the town of Fairfield for the water pollution control facility upgrade to the state of Connecticut, to the DEP of the state of Connecticut for their review and acceptance.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
This is
Aye.
Quinn, aye.
Aye. So Christian, Quinn, Mark, Jerry, Joe in favor.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's keep going. Next in front of us are the October sewer use adjustments. We have 5 for discussion. It's my understanding that 4 are procedural in nature, and they have been already, quote unquote, adjudicated. And there is one that warrants discussion tonight, which is 323 Roland Road with Hyla Rubin, who I thank you for your patience in staying with us for almost 45 minutes. Chris, could you... 42, I know, I'm a round number guy. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes that bothers Joe. But Chris, can you frame the situation for us?
Yes. Back in January of 2020, it looks like she had a leak on her water. Her water usage went up significantly. She got an adjustment from Aquarian. Based on the usage, they gave her a credit of 37 units. That was adjusted into the factor, but you know, the adjustment I don't believe she's happy with. So that's the reason why she's here tonight. So
can I speak?
So I don't know, Hayla, if you want to.
Please do. Absolutely.
Hyla. Okay. Okay, it was never established that there was a leak in January 2020, but I will go through that. Okay, that's not something that I had, presented to anybody. I know that you've been given 3 years of our sewer use bills and our water bills, and you can see that things were very normal before 2020, so I won't go through all of those numbers with you. I do have a couple of pages I would like to go through. It takes exactly 6 minutes. I've rehearsed it 40 times. So, okay. So if you would let me do that, I'd appreciate it.
Please,
okay.
By all means.
Okay. As you could see in the sewer use bills that were provided to you, our bill increased from $245 last year, our sewer use bill, from $245 last year to $1,110 in 2020. Previous year's bills have always been in the normal range around $200 to $245. Okay. Everyone I called before I got to the right office in the town of Fairfield and at Aquarian had the same reaction when I told them, responding, quote, "That has to be a mistake." Okay. Examining our water payments to Aquarian over the past several years, it's very clear that a huge spike in our water usage occurred during the same months that are used to calculate the current sewer use bill. I never knew how that was calculated before. Now I know very well. Okay. We are partially at fault here, because we should have paid closer attention to the spike when it first occurred in January, when we got a bill of $140. January 2020 was not a great month here. My husband was preparing for major back surgery, and I had just broken my jaw. I wasn't very attentive to the water bill at that point in time. But I would like to point out a few other facts. We were not here for a week in December 2019. We were not here for the week of the surgery in January 2020. And we were not here for a third week in March 2020, all of which would suggest less water use rather than more during that time period. When you examine the water use data you were provided, you'll notice that after very high bills, January through May, always $100 or more after an average of, $42 for the years and years. When you examine those bills, you notice that after that extreme increase for 5 months, in June, our bill dropped to $48. Now, there had never been any leak detected during that time and no leak repaired during that time, but our water bill went right back down to $48, which was remarkable, okay, and which is a big part of our concern here, like what could have possibly accounted for that erratic pattern. Furthermore, I'd like to point out that the increased usage was not due to the pandemic that has affected us. We both teach graduate courses and consult in our fields, and for the past several years, we've both been home at least 3 days a week, and then we go and teach part-time. My husband at the University of Bridgeport, it's a full-time position, but he goes 2 days a week to teach in the evening, and I went 2 days a week in the evening to teach in New Rochelle. So for many years, we have been mostly home. It didn't just start during this pandemic. As well, the increase started in January, not in the middle of March when the lockdown occurred. Okay, so it's not the case that we're just using more water because we're suddenly at home. Okay. At the same time that our bills normalized in June, I'd like to point out that our next-door neighbors at 323 Roland Road, with whom we share a single driveway, not a double kind of driveway, their house sold and closed on June 3rd. Now, the sensor that Aquarian reads when they drive by and read the meter from their car, the sensor for the neighbor's house is on the driveway side of their house, whereas ours is in the front of our house. But what I asked Aquarian was, could that have been relevant? Could it have been possible that the meters were being read for both houses? Because as soon as they moved out on June 3rd, our bill went back down to normal. So was it possible that there was a combined reading? I asked this to Karen May, who turned out to be my Aquarian contact person for the 48 hours I was on the phone with her from the minute I got the bill. Okay, if that could have been the case, and she immediately responded that could not happen without any investigation or calling me back or considering it. So she just said, no, that could not happen. What she did do was issue us a partial credit saying it was a courtesy because we have been customers because we've lived in this house for 30 years and we've always paid our bill promptly. She sent that information to Carol Salone in the Sewer Use Department, who has been beyond wonderful. And she determined that our adjusted bill would go down to $715, still 3 times the average for anybody else on our street and for ourselves in the past. But that was what she could do based on the adjustment that Karen May would make. It seemed very high to us for a family of 2 people whose home life patterns have not changed significantly in the past year. The next thing I did was ask Aquarian to please check our water meter to make sure it was functioning properly. Now, I'm aware that maybe it wasn't functioning properly in January and maybe they couldn't tell, but it just seemed like it would be a good idea to have it evaluated. On September 29th, the day I made the request, I was told this couldn't be done due to COVID restrictions, that Aquarian people couldn't come out and do that. The following day, September 30th, I was told that the policy changed overnight and the meter could be checked. However, if they came out to check the meter and it was found to be functioning correctly, they would take away the adjustment of what comes out to roughly $400 adjustment off of the bill. Okay. That didn't seem to be a reasonable policy to us, which is when we realized that we needed to get, there had to be some other way to solve this, to try to solve this problem, which is why we're here. Okay, we still feel our water meter should have been checked, possibly replaced, given the erratic nature of the pattern of our bills over the past year. The fact that our water usage returned to normal in June 2020 still intrigues us. That's why I told you all about our neighbors, and when they moved, our reading went back to normal. I'm not suggesting that our neighbors did anything about the water meter, but maybe there was a possibility that those readings, for some reason, were just combined. Of course, the other question that has to be addressed is whether or not there was a water leak in the house. And the fact that the return to normal usage occurred in June, or the normal bill occurred in June, cannot explain the pattern unless we had a leak that was repaired at the end of May. Then we would have a lower bill in June. In fact, we had one plumbing repair and only one plumbing repair in the past year. It occurred on November 4th, 2019, not at all during a time when our bills were high. We had one leak. Yeah.
I think that, can I ask you to pause for a second? No, you're not out of time. We can go all night. In fact,
oh, good.
There are certain limitations after 11 o'clock to the type of business that we can conduct, but I think we might end before then, right?
We have to babysit at 7:30 in the morning in West Hartford, so don't worry.
I personally find your diligence to be commendable. We've had situations with Aquarion that are not dissimilar to this. You're talking to your neighbors and your volunteer commission members who I think have a different perspective than Aquarion. Is within the commission, are there any questions, comments, any reason why we wouldn't kind of normalize this to prior years?
Yeah, no problem with anything you said, Mark. This is Joe. Can I just ask, did you say your address was 323 or your neighbor's address was 323?
No, we're 323. They're 333.
Okay. I misunderstood. I'm sorry.
Do you know us?
Thank you.
Oh, have you been to our house? Do we know you? No. Okay, no. Okay, 323, yeah. And they're 333.
Mark, I'd like to make a motion.
The mailmen have a lot of trouble with it, too, and the mail people, I shouldn't say the mailmen. Okay, so we had one repair November 4th, which had nothing to do with the pattern.
I think you might be at the finish line.
Okay, I had one more paragraph, but if you don't want me to do it, I won't. Okay. We just want help.
Okay.
We're your neighbors.
Okay, Mark, I'd like to make a motion.
Yeah.
I'd like to adjust 323 Roland Road, their bill for 2020, based on the average of the last 2 years, 2018 and 2019, which looks like it would calculate under $300. Chris, you could do the calculation for me, but.
Yeah.
Second?
This is Quinn. I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Iowa, don't be late for babysitting.
Okay, can I just ask you one question? How can we still get Aquarion to come and see what the story is?
We have no leverage over Aquarion, and we'd like to think that we operate quite a bit differently than Aquarion.
Oh, you certainly do. Well, I thank you, because this has been a real frustration, really frustrating. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
appreciate it.
Well, have a good night.
Somehow I'm gonna get a new bill. I'm not gonna have a lien on my house. I'm gonna get a bill. It's not gonna be overdue, right?
So you'll definitely have a lien on your house. You'll definitely have a lien on your house.
Tyler, one thing, what I would do is, Carol's gonna figure the new bill. We'll mail you a new bill within the next few days, so.
And I will pay it immediately, like I always do. Okay.
So with that being
said, are you Chris
yes,
or Brian? Oh, you're
no,
Chris?
Chris.
Hi. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the new bill needs to be paid before November 1st, so you don't get interest. So I'll have her get it out in the mail tomorrow. But
tomorrow is
Not
there's
going to
not
work.
much time. By November 1st is Sunday.
Sunday.
Right, exactly. So I believe it's maybe November 2nd. So that would be the deadline. So I'll get the bill to you. Unless you want me to deliver it to you tomorrow, I can drop it off to you.
Okay, well, we won't be home, but you could do that. Why don't you just email me what the amount is, and could I just pay it by credit card online or something?
You have to check with the tax collector. That I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, well,
you could drop it
Hyla,
off tomorrow if you want, and
well,
I can bring it in on Friday. Or I can just come in on Friday and pay it. I'd rather not come into the building. I just that's why I'm doing virtual things. But yeah. What? Yeah, I'll have to come in. So I can just come in on Friday and pay it. You don't have to send it to me in the first place.
All right, that's what I would suggest. So just contact the office and we'll get it squared away. So.
Okay, I'll come in on Friday and pay it. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Hyla. Okay. So we have four more for review.
Can I ask one additional question? I know the others are all resolved. Can I just ask a curiosity question on the cement, the 141 Ardmore Street?
Yep.
Where we made the adjustment because they used their water to mix cement. What was their situation last year and the year before?
It was the same scenario. So
okay, we're seeing a lot more this year. Over the last couple of years. Just curiosity. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Any others?
There's been a lot less this year than there has been in past years.
Oh, wow. No, don't jinx us.
Don't.
Oh, yeah. If there's any thoughts on how to, move through these more efficiently, I'm wide open to them.
Tried to, vet out quite a few of these already. So as you can see,
that's 15 minutes on one. Okay. So let's continue on. Under old business, we have nothing listed. We have quite a bit of updates on the projects, and we have Dennis with us. So let's segue right into that. And Brian and Bill and Chris and Dennis, why don't you take us through the updates on the projects that we have underway?
So, Chris, you want to go through the list, and then I'll just I'll do D&E. I'll do D&E.
Yeah, that's fine. So the Mill River Pump Station generator, I sent the contract with Southern Connecticut Gas. It's been approved. We're just waiting for them to install the gas line and then make the final connections in the pump station for the new generator. That project will then be complete. The wastewater treatment plant generator, they've done environmental testing. They have not found any contaminants in that area, which is good. The pad site has been excavated, and they're waiting for to relocate the generator for the new generator.
They also ran into a duct bank, which required some redesign of the concrete pad, which kind of slowed things down a little bit. We're arguing about a change order right now with them based on additional materials that need to be removed. But we did get an extension for the project until January 1st. It's not very long, but we're hoping to have that in place at that time. So should have we do have a drop dead date of January 1st to get that done. Right now, we're on. I don't want to say we're on schedule, but things are moving ahead.
You guys feel free to ask questions as we go through. I'm reading documents. It's sometimes tough for me to pick up if somebody has a question.
Yeah, Brian, you want to do C since for the hardening?
Since it's my nightmare. I mean, my baby. Yes. So the hardening project has, as everyone knows, has been kind of a difficult project. As we've excavated, we've found more and more contamination, PCB contamination throughout the site. We're finally at a point, though, where we are seeing daily progress being made. We're installing about 30 to 40 feet of sheet pile a day on average. We're currently in the process of setting up to make sure that the ground improvements that need to be constructed in the road are going forward. They will be starting next week. And we will actually, the contractor is going to be working staggered hours starting at 3:30 till about 10 at night in order to minimize impact to the traffic down on One Rod Highway. Most of this was supposed to be done in the summer, so we were going to be missing the bus routes, but unfortunately we are where we are, so we've had to make some adjustments on that. One of the biggest issues we're running into at the moment is the dewatering setups that we have to put in place, which are being designed to an ultra conservative measure. The areas where we are dewatering have not been found to have PCBs in the groundwater behind the conservation plant, but basically we're not taking any risks with discharging any type of PCB impacted groundwater into the treatment plant, because that would be a major problem. So we are running into some additional costs associated with the size of the groundwater treatment system that we're going to have to use at the site, and also based on the amount of volume that the groundwater treatment system is going to generate. So we do have a meeting with the contractors again tomorrow to basically work that out. Right now, we still have about a $300,000 contingency based on the log that we've presented to you, that Chris has presented to you. That's including the money that we just got from the state. So I'm not going to say we're out of the woods with maybe running over budget, even the contingency budget, but I do feel much better about the budget right now than I did probably about 6 weeks ago. We're still excavating areas in anticipation for the sheet pile to be constructed. And we are basically in the process of going to get additional funding from the town side to do investigation of the SEH area, the significant environmental hazard area, at the treatment plant where this whole thing kind of started, which is on the northeast side of the property. We continue, Ty and Bond continues to have progress meetings with the EPA and DEP to get this project, keep the project on task and on the time frame. I'm hoping that by early spring this is pretty much done, but everything's a fluid process at this point. I think that's about it. I'm just trying to think of anything. I mean, you're all welcome to come to the weekly site meetings if you want. They're generally scheduled on Thursday at 10:30. Some people do come from the Flood and Erosion Control Board. The one other thing, positive thing about the project, other than that it's about a little more than halfway done, is that the project was accepted. The abstract of the project was accepted to be presented at a New England, I don't know the exact name of it, but it, according to our engineer, it is quite an honor. I'm just trying to find the email. So we're getting an abstraction. Our abstract was submitted and basically approved to be presented at an upcoming seminar. Is someone typing?
Not anymore.
Yeah. Thank you.
Brian, it's Jerry. Are we
But I
paying enough
can
charge for the
answer
night
any
differential for
questions.
people working at night?
That has not come up. I know they're union, but I would push back against that. So there wasn't any additional cost. Some of the scheduling issues that are running into on the project are, in fact, some of the contractor's own making. They have not brought that up. That is something that's on the agenda tomorrow. But since they won't be working
demanding, they want a night differential, we shouldn't pay it. And if they're demanding it, so tell them to go back to the mornings. That's what I would say.
So the one thing, Gary, and I agree with you, we won't be paying that. I won't agree to it. But the one issue is that the amount of traffic on one route highway, it's not something where we can just close it down to one lane because they're actually filling they actually have to fill the top of the helical pile driver with grout. So it's like spilling into the other lane as they would be doing it. We watched them do it for 2 days, and we're trying to come up with some mechanism to basically be able to do it. But I just, there's too much risk to the town side. I would think for like the school buses or any residents, we really just need to shut the thing down. And I've tried to work with the Board of Ed to come up with like a schedule for the buses. They're just in their own personal hell right now with the bus scheduling. I mean, the buses are running all day, every day. We were trying to come up with some idea about trying to find an, a off-site location for the buses, but it's just too confusing. So, but yeah, I'm not paying pay differential for the nighttime. I mean, they're still only working 6 or 7 hours.
Yeah, exactly. So it doesn't, I would definitely fight against that.
We've been pretty.
Where is the meeting on Thursday? If I could ask you, on Thursdays.
So tomorrow, it's going to be pouring rain, but we're going to be meeting at the conservation garage. If you're more than welcome to come down.
Yeah, I could be there next Thursday.
Be fly in the wall.
Thursday.
Yeah. They're about an hour and a half long. Tomorrow we'll be dealing mostly with the groundwater treatment system, which is more robust than anyone was anticipating, just because we have to be ultra conservative with the permit limits,
right,
and with the water going into the treatment plant.
Okay.
All right. I think all things considered, that's a very positive turn of events from last month. So thank you.
I think we're, I will say before we get to the other, there's other projects that are going on down there that will be impacted financially based on the site conditions. One of them being the microgrid. There's excavation that's going to be required in order to install a conduit through areas that are, impacted with PCBs that need to be removed. So we're still trying to get to the bottom of that. So I'm not saying that I won't be coming back to the commission to discuss, overages on certain projects. It's just I don't have that information at this time.
Okay. What's next?
All right. Easton Turnpike Pump Station. This is Dennis. So things are finally starting to move over there. We have all the submittals approved. The pumps and the pump control panel are completed. They're in Wallingford, sitting in the factory, waiting to be brought to the site. I'm actually I am going there Friday to take a look at everything and to bless the coating on the wet well before it gets shipped to the site. Kovacs is the contractor. They've been doing some exploratory digging, and they started excavating for the wet well just to verify that there was ledge at 8 feet, and there was ledge at 8 feet. So what we're covered there. Chris and I have been working with Sacred Heart and all the utilities we finally hired a company out of Brookfield. They came in and they located all utilities today for us. There's the duct bank for the guard shack. You may or may not know it. It runs right through our site to a transformer up in the woods. So we're working with Eversource. Eversource is going to provide new cabling and a new transformer to serve Sacred Heart. This is an opportunity for them to get that transformer out of the woods. So they have an ulterior motive, but That's moving along. I think Monday we're going to meet. Chris and I are going to meet with everybody on Monday to just button that up. It's not in the way of the wet well or the valve vault. It's not in the way of anything they're doing right now, so they're proceeding forward. The next week they'll be moving the Bill, next Monday, Tom's going to be calling you. He's going to move the generator building so that they could finish their excavation. So there will be they're going to coordinate with you on that. So,
Okay.
For the force main, we've been.
Dennis, can I stop you for a minute? This is Joe.
Sure.
And you know the question. It's not for you, Dennis. It's either Chris or Brian. The easement and/or the $1 million. What's going on with that?
So the easement we won't file till after the project. I mean, we have a signed agreement with them, but just the minor movements of the building, we will file after the project just because of some of the issues that we kind of knew were going to go on. So that's not an issue. We have still not received payment. I mean, we can start inquiring about that. It's not a problem. I mean, they're not going away anytime soon, and we do have that signed agreement. So, but
Is that on our side that we just haven't invoiced them?
No, I can weigh in a little bit on this as well. I had a meeting with Sacred Heart with one of their facilities managers last week, and I brought it up to him. He was meeting with them on last Friday, to go over some things, and he was going to bring it up to them. So we have not heard anything since then, but it is in discussion that, we are requesting part of our payment. So at this time.
Thanks, Chris. If you'd let me know, then I'd stop asking the question. Just send me an email when you know.
No, and I agree,
Yeah,
but it has to go through the attorney, I think, as far as a request. So I don't know if the town attorney needs to get involved as far as requesting it.
I will let the administration know that we're looking for partial payment at this point.
Okay. All right. So on to the force main. So the force main's been moving along pretty well. We're all the way up to what's that nursing home there, Chris?
Sunrise.
I don't know the exact.
Is it Cambridge or something? We're almost at
Cambridge, yeah.
Yeah, we're just past.
Fairchild Wheeler.
Yeah, we're just about to Fairchild Wheeler. So we're starting to get close to Churchill Road. I think the plan is to be there in 2 weeks, and then True Blue is bringing a second crew in, and one crew will continue up Churchill Road, and the other crew will drop back to the turnoff area to get that portion completed. So it's looking pretty good as far as getting all the pipe in the ground this year. I'm just not sure about paving. We've decided to kind of hold off on talking to the state on what their paving requirements are going to be until all the pipe is in the ground. And they've been pretty good dealing with us and dealing with them. We did hit a pocket of petroleum-soaked soils from the Sunoco station there. It was not directly in front of the gas station. It kind of migrated, followed the pipe trench sort of downhill. So we're out of that now. It's all been hauled off to Massachusetts, and I don't anticipate us hitting any more of that. So
DEP was notified. All the protocols were followed. Waste profiles are signed.
The material was disposed of.
Correct. So that's it. On any questions on the force main?
One thing with that, there is a change order that was attached with the documents as well. So for the cost of that disposal.
Yeah, and we did a couple ways to save some money, as we are using certified flaggers out there now instead of police. So we had $150,000 allowance for traffic control, and my hope is that we only spend about 100 to 110 of it, and hopefully that will offset the cost of this material disposal. But that's just me being hopeful. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Okay. That's smart.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is that the budget looks good and the project is moving along.
Yes.
Force main project's moving along.
Let me ask asking on behalf of a friend while I have that visual in my head. Where are we in terms of costing out the extension of that line down to further down towards what used to be the market, which is now what, like a daycare center or something?
Yeah, the Godwin
Godwin
school down there. Yeah.
Battered.
I don't know, where is that?
With that? We haven't done anything with it yet. The thought was we were going to wait until Sacred Heart came through with, what their new proposal is, which I've been in contact with their engineer. They are in the process. I thought they were going to come this month, but probably next month to reapply. They've reconfigured some of their buildings and locations. The nanatorium is now moving to the upper campus rather than the west campus. So, and they've downsized the amount, the hockey rink, the size of the hockey rink. So, some of their flows have changed, but they're going to present to the commission based on that. So, one thing I just want to weigh in, and Dennis, now is probably a good time to bring it up, but we had to realign the sewer force main due to a conflict with the water main. Upon doing so, we went to the DOT for approval. They came back to us with a request that we repave the pull-off on Easton Turnpike. That cost has not been analyzed yet. We don't know what the cost is going to be of that, but I just don't want you guys to think that there's going to be an added cost or potentially for that area. So Dennis, you can weigh in on that as well. So.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I really have to say is Tracy May has been promoted to head. She's the head of the division now. So she was replaced with someone new that I have not met yet. So I'd like to meet with that person, Chris, and you and I talk to him first before we decide on that paving piece, if you will.
To agree on it, correct?
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yep. All right. I guess I'll continue on with F, which is the East Trunk value engineering. So there was the RFP had two phases. There was a part A and a part B. Part A was completed and submitted. I think it was included in your packet. Part B is being reviewed now and waiting on some costs for the pump station option. So it was my plan to have that to you ahead of this meeting, but to be honest, there's been a lot going on with the construction, so I wasn't able to get it to you, but you will have it in a couple of weeks. So I don't know if anyone had an opportunity to read Part A. It's really just a review of Cardinals' design their design as presented. We really didn't find anything earth-shattering. We did talk a bit about the fact that there was no soils testing completed, so we're recommending that should be done before the project goes out to bid. That could potentially add a lot of cost, as you know. A couple of other things I saw was the contract times was 420 days, which just seems like an awful lot of time for 2,600 feet of pipe. That's about 10 feet a day. So you may want to, if this does go out to bid, you may want to talk to Cardinal about that. And then, as you know, the sheeting cost is over 50% of the total job. So in Part B, we are looking at alternative ways to potentially save some money. Let's see. Again, based on our experience with DOT on Route 59, I would suggest that you just have another meeting with the DOT to talk about any work in the state right away.
Dennis, let me ask you to pause right there, and I'll personally jump in. I'm guessing there might be some other comments and questions, but this is something that we need to attend to. We've been talking about for 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
The costs keep going up. We're at about $7 million plus. I don't think it's going to be. I think it's going to be substantially more than $7 million to replace half a mile of pipe.
Yes.
So there's just gotta be another way.
Replace it where it is. I mean, one of the options we're looking at is replacing it where it currently sits, which would save a lot of money. It's not as deep. It's just a wet area. It needs to be a really tight construction, Yeah. And I think that it could be done. I mean, you'll see, that is one of the options that we're looking at. I know it's not, the plan from the beginning was always to get it out of that area, but there's plenty of sewers in wet areas that don't leak. So, yeah. I mean, it is something to consider.
Dennis, what about it's Jerry, what if they replace it where it is and encase it?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. They could do that. The biggest issue is going to be the manholes the low-lying manholes that are in the road. You can't really have those sticking 4 feet up out of the ground, and you wouldn't be able to drive down the road. So that would be something that we would need to look at. So, yeah. So, I mean, there are options, but even trenchless technologies are very expensive. You would think it would be cheaper to directional drill a pipe, and the cost per foot, I mean, it's really not. So, you'll see that. Yeah.
Let me just ask this question. If we were to replace it in place or relatively close to the existing location, would there be more requirements as far as permitting through DEP, Army Corps, and so forth?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was figuring. So that might delay the project quite a bit. And I think we're running out of time with one of the grants that we have. I don't know how much longer we have we might need another extension on it, but
2 years
grant for
another
750.
Yeah, it's $750,000, but I don't know how long it's for. So,
but it was for $5
years.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could save $3 million, it would make sense. No.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, and based on what we know, I think there's a lot of potential slippage in that $7 million, given what we're trying to do, and that we don't know. What's in that soil. We do know that a lot of pollutants have come down through that river.
7 could be 9.5 in a blink of an eye.
Oh, easily.
We don't have any.
Easily.
We don't have any soil borings or environmental testing if we were to replace in site in place.
Yeah, well, to be honest, the borings that they did, all they did was probes. They didn't sample anything. So
right.
It's kind of the same thing. All they did was just bore down till they hit rock or didn't hit rock. They didn't sample anything. Yeah, or water.
Right.
So you would need to do that again anyways.
They did.
Yeah.
They did test pits and they didn't test the soil when they did it.
Oh, they
no.
They did a geoprobe.
Geoprobes.
No, and they did not. But that wouldn't be a huge cost.
No, it wouldn't be a huge cost. It just doesn't make any sense why they wouldn't do it at the time, because it's not such a huge cost.
I agree with you 100%. And
after
dealing with what we're dealing with.
Yeah, when the RFP was written, I don't think it was part of their scope of work. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably $30,000 to $50,000 to do all the laboratory analysis, but until then, you won't know how much it's going to cost to remove it. Depends on. I guess it depends on what's
dewatering.
I know I came late to this party, but this is going to be a boondoggle. This project, I'm telling you right now.
Yeah, I think that's why you're at the party, Jerry.
Yeah,
I do.
I mean, I just think if you can replace the pipe where it is and you can encase it because of the water, I would definitely do that. You're going to save a ton of money.
Well, I don't want to, I don't want to take up too much of your time, but just a little sneak peek at another option we're looking at is to line the existing pipe in place and put a relief sewer parallel to it. So you would leave the pipe and all of that, all connections, and then you would basically run a relief sewer to handle the extra capacity. So it would be I don't know what size pipe it would be. We haven't figured that out yet, but it may be an 18-inch pipe or something like that. So, that is another alternative that we're going to be looking at. So
That's
pretty
even cheaper.
Yeah. So we're trying to get that done, and it's just, I haven't completed it yet. So it was not in a state to show you guys yet. So,
So
You
Dennis,
can-
one thing with that. Who's
What's
that? Go ahead. Oh, go ahead. I just wanted to weigh
I was
in
going
and
to say, Brian, so south of the... Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Brian.
Dennis, south of the post road, if you were to make a relief, you would bring it back to a larger single pipe south of the post road where it would be hooking into the new Riverside Drive siphon then?
I'm not sure if I think it would only go to the post road. I don't think it would go past the post road. It's just through that area, through that wet area. So yes, essentially almost all the way to the Riverside Drive siphon.
All right.
Which is on the opposite side of the post road. So yeah.
Yeah, everything up to the post road is 33 inch, except for the restriction area, and then it turns into 36 inch.
Right, and then yeah.
With that being said, when they did the study for the Metro Center for capacity, I believe it was determined that we do not have enough capacity based on the 33-inch pipe.
That's correct.
Why we needed to upgrade it to the 36 inch.
Right. That's correct, Chris. But we could instead of putting a new 36-inch 18 feet deep, we could line what's there and rehabilitate and fix all the leaks and then run like I said, a 14 or an 18-inch sewer at 6 feet deep. But let me finish exploring that option before we get too excited.
No, it's that sort of creative thought we need. The $7 to $9 million proposal in front of us is nonsensical.
Yeah, understood. So, all right. So more to come on this project next month. We could talk about drill down through the cost saving options. But that's the update on that. So
okay, thanks, Dennis.
You're welcome. I don't know who wants to take over now. You got Riverside Drive siphon.
Riverside Drive. All right, so we received the bid documents back. They've been reviewed. They met with Ty and Bond on the 22nd regarding design and comments for review. Ty and Bond's going to take those back and review them and make any suggestions for that. The next item, Hwpc Outfall. The engineer has reviewed it. We're waiting to get the results back. I was contacted this week by them. They are going to get us the contract drawings and all the paperwork that we need. They should have it to us by early next week. So from there, then we can go out to bid and get that project, hopefully get it started. So the East Trunk Wetlands, item through the Metro Center. The RFP has been done for that. It's been posted. It's actually posted today. So anybody, we can get any requests for information on it, and then that'll be hopefully addressed fairly soon. So the wastewater treatment plant, as Dennis had already said, I think we already touched on that. Anybody have any questions on that so far? The East Trunk Interceptor relocation, Upper East, there's been no update on that. L, the microgrid, the environmental testing was done by the RAS building, which is on the south side of the property. I believe there was some contaminants over there or conflicts with utilities that need to be addressed prior, but the contractor is working on a plan to deal with it in order to move that project forward. Brian, I don't know, or Bill, I don't know if you want to weigh in on that anymore, but the microgrid project.
So I'll have a better update on that after tomorrow, but they have done all the environmental investigation. It appears there's about $45,000 worth of soil that needs to be removed to put in the remaining conduit. But the project has no budget in it. There's no contingency. So there might be additional requests coming back either to the board or to the town for that additional funding. I have to figure that out.
Okay. We done with that one? Move on?
Yep.
M.
Yep.
The reduction in the pipe size in the Stratfield Road, there has been no update. We're kind of waiting for Sacred Heart to come through, and then we would have to address that. It's all, contingent upon the finishing of the force main in that section as well. Uncwold Road, 8-inch pipe crossing. I've been dealing with the engineer. They're waiting to do some exploring in the post road. They need a DOT permit in order to do so, which takes a little bit of time. But they're going to do some vacuum excavation to get some elevations of the utilities out there. From then, they'll, make their plan. We gave them a conceptual drawing and kind of something to start. But they're going to come back to us, hopefully soon as far as, a design, and then it'll be presented to the commission once it's, reviewed. So, letter O, I don't think there's very much of an update on that except from last month. So, Bill, unless you have anything.
It just put in dehumidifier. It has dried up nicely down there. So I think we'll probably inhibit a lot of the corrosion now. So we'll see.
Comments, questions? Okay. Appreciate the update, Chris and Bill and Brian and Dennis, if you're still with us. Yep, you're still there.
Yep.
A lot going on. Most activity we've had as a commission ever. I should mention that there's a in front of on the agenda for the select women's meeting on Tuesday to fill Ron Drew's vacant seat, a gentleman named Matthew Manchisi, who Joe and Nancy have spoken to. He has some experience in WPCA matters, so that could be a nice addition to the commission.
Mark,
Stay tuned on that.
Mark, the selectmen meeting is Monday at 4, not Tuesday. You mentioned Tuesday.
Monday.
Yeah, Tuesday I think is the election.
That's right. No school. No school on Tuesday.
There you go.
Any sewer bypasses, Mr. Bill Norton?
We did have one. It was over on Black Brook Turnpike, just debris and some stone. So we've cleaned the whole line up service 2 from there. And we found a lot of debris. So we're going to go back in and TV that line to see what's going on with it. And if we find something, we'll probably add it to our next I&I contract with Dennis.
Gotcha. How was the issue from last month with the landscaper and the hairdresser resolved down in Southport?
Yeah, that went away. Thank God.
Okay, good. Okay, good.
Yeah, it solved itself. So.
Okay. You guys, it's a bit after 9. I appreciate everyone taking the time to join the meeting tonight and working through a lot of pretty busy agenda. Very much appreciated. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
From Jerry.
Second.
A bunch of seconds. Second from Quinn. Quinn, good to see you. Good to have you. All in favor? That's unanimous.
Aye.
Be safe, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
To all.
Good night.